Greetings to one and all, it's your old buddy Jay here, coming at you with some more countermeasures goodness. Thanks again for all of the support for the YouTube channel and the more recent Apple podcasts. I can't believe that that's been up and running for 2 months already, so I do really appreciate the support on that. Aside from my usual day-to-day running of the design business and chasing the kids around the garden, I am also working on uploading some more interesting and fun content over the coming months, so please do keep your eyes open for some of that. And if you haven't subscribed already, then please do. The YouTube and Apple podcast are both free, and it does really help me grow the channel. The links are in the descriptor below. So continuing on with the creative lockdown interviews that I've been doing, this week I am interviewing Stuart Serjent, who has been a close friend and mentor to me for the last 20 years. He's very kindly offered up some of his time to go through my now legendary 20 questions. He is a creative director and a founder of 2 design businesses, Serjent Design and Packworks, which have been going for quite a few years now, and it was really good to catch up with him on his journey. So please take my hand and come with me as we dive once more into my deep design pocket and learn everything you need to know about how to get the job done. Good morning or good afternoon, 8 minutes past 12. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Jason. Yes, I'm well, thanks.
Welcome to the 3rd podcast that I've ever done. So I hate to say you were 3rd in the queue, I'm afraid. Sorry about that.
I look forward to viewing the other 2.
Yeah. If you've got a spare 5 hours, you should probably go and do that. So thanks for coming on. I don't know what I didn't do with the other guys is I did like a little intro before we do the recording, but I wondered if you wanted to just give other listeners a brief sort of breakdown, a little bit about yourself before we start on our questions. So that's just what you're doing now, and who you are. And
okay, well, my name is Stuart Serjent. I currently have working for myself as Serjent Design Limited, doing sort of brand identity and various things and websites and all kinds of stuff at the moment. But also I have another limited company which is called Packworks. Packworks is a packaging company that's been set up by me and another business partner, and we're working directly with food manufacturing, and that takes up quite a lot of our time. And obviously, going back from experience wise, you and I worked together, had the pleasure.
Yeah. You're a lucky man.
Back in the year 2000.
That's a while ago, yeah.
That's Beresford's.
Yeah.
And I've been working for myself now for best part of 3 years.
Yeah, man, that's gone really quick. I can remember when you started. It doesn't seem that long ago, but 3 years has just burned by, hasn't it? So well, thanks for coming on. Basically, what I've been doing, and I've now spoke to you about it before, but I'll just recap for anyone that's not listened to any of these before, which is probably most people. Basically, I'm just getting in contact with various creatives and of all different types, so like photographers and illustrators, and I've got a cake maker coming up in a few weeks' time, which should be quite interesting. But I'm just interested in where people first start thinking that they want to get into a sort of creative career / lifestyle, and then just the kind of journey from that kind of inception through to where you are today, really. So I just break it down into 10 simple questions.
Yeah.
And I'm asking everybody the same 10 questions, except the last one, which is given to the next person by the previous interviewed. And that's it. So have you prepped your question for later?
Yeah, I mean, I had a little think about that final question, of course. But yeah, I mean, let's fire away. I mean, I do have a tendency to waffle on, so please.
No, that's all good. There's no time limit, and like I said, like no one's listening anyway, mate. So
we'll break the record of John Beecher at 2 hours. I'm not.
He's 2 hours and 5, I think. 2 hours and 5. So just speak slowly and stretch it out, you know. So so the first question is, when do you first remember yourself leaning towards being creative? So that can, you know, for the other guys, it was like from when they were babies, and you know, for Nick, the photographer.
Yeah. I mean, you and I both have young children. As you know, they often like to draw, scribble, crayons and stuff like that. So no doubt we did the same as kids. You know, I used to draw an awful lot. I had a huge sort of ice cream tub full of felt tip pens. And I remember I used to get rolls and rolls of like kind of wallpaper lining my dad used to bring for me, and I'd just fill it with stuff. So I was always drawing. And then when I was in that school, and I'm going back to 1977, which was the Silver Tube, showing my age.
Mate, that was the year I was born, just to put that in perspective.
We were asked to participate in a drawing competition, and I won it for my age group. For kind of, I think it was nationals, but something like that anyway. And it was, you know, different age groups won certain things, and I painted a picture of the Queen Elizabeth II ship. And I was 7 years old, so then I was given we went on a drawing course. We were offered a drawing course, and I was given lots of different kinds of beautiful colouring pencils and as a kid. So that was kind of like my first success. And then I just, you know, at school, kind of during the sort of GCEs, O levels. I was, you know, my favourite subject was art. Wasn't particularly academic, but loved art. And I was always known as, you know, the drawer, the artist one. You know, everybody knew me as the one who liked to do art.
Draw stuff,
That was, you know, so very, very early on. And then moving up to when I was around sort of 15 years old at school, high school, we had a careers advisor come round and sort of see what to do in life.
Yeah, you know? that's always, it's funny because like we had that as well, and I was thinking about it just this morning again, and it's such a, you just colour in all those little boxes, and then it go, oh, did you have the ones that went through the computer, and then it just tells you.
We didn't have computers, Jason.
It was given to an old secretary, and she went off and crunched the data for 6 months.
It was just in the library at school, from what I can remember. And we sat down, and I took my big A2 portfolio, you know, it was Daler Art portfolio. It was full of drawings and stuff. And she sat down and said, right, what do you want to do as a career? You know, forget being an astronaut. What do you want to do?
Was that the first thing you wanted? Were you dressed as an astronaut?
So I said, you know, I'm interested in art, and art is always, you know, my passion. And of course, you know, super negative. I mean, like, you're never going to make it as an artist, you know, and the people, you only make money in art when you die, you know.
Right.
So, you know, the Van Goghs of this world and that. And my art was obviously nowhere near that standard. She looked through the portfolio, and I mean, it was good. It was good enough. It wasn't. I wouldn't say I was absolutely.
But who was she? Was she just like a careers advisor?
It was just some careers advisor who just wanted to get me on a YTS scheme to work at the aerospace down the road, or Heinz, which is the big headquarters in my area of Wigan.
They do have an agenda, I think, those guys. You know, they kind of, not that they want to crush dreams, but I do think they steer you towards those kind of vocations in life, just because they think, you might have a shot, but you'd be better off as a plumber, you know. So
that's kind of how she was angling it. And I was going, obviously, you know, she said crushing dreams, and I'd finished going through this portfolio with all my drawings, and
which you're really proud of, obviously. You're there like, it's the best.
growing up.
Did you have
And
your ship in there from when you were 7?
I don't think I kept that. Well, my mum probably binned it, or my mum was notorious just chucking stuff out. You know, I'd got
Right.
all this portfolios, and I'd come home from college or whatever, and I'd say, "Mum, where's that such a thing portfolio?" She goes, "Oh, that's old. I threw that out." I'm like, "Mum, this is my career."
It's the northern way, mate. It's the northern
Yeah,
way.
she laid it out. Yeah, so she was going through this careers advisor, was going through my portfolio, and it was very disappointing. And she said, "Have you got anything else?" And at the back of the portfolio, I had this A3 cartridge pad. Now, nobody, apart from my brother and probably my mum, knew this even existed. And it was in the pocket of the art portfolio, and I slid it out. And what it was this is going back into the 80s and the kind of football casuals of the time.
Yeah.
So sports brands were huge at the time, and my brother, being a few years older than me, he was buying into all these brands like Sergio Tacchini, Lacoste, Fila, LS.
Was Umbro a big one? Then was Umbro around in the 80s?
No, not really. Umbro was just a brand for football at the time. You know, it wasn't like a football casual.
Okay. Yeah.
It was Italian, so you know, Italian, French, and stuff. So the kids were all trying. You know, we couldn't really afford it, or we'd save up to get it. But my brother had a weekend job, and he saved up, and he used to buy this stuff. And what he used to do, he'd take off the label, the tag.
Yeah.
Throw it in the bin, and of course I'd go foraging and I'd bring out all these tags. So I had like tags of like Sergio Tacchini or Lacoste Fila or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And what I used to do, secretly, privately, I'd redraw these logos sort of on an A3 piece of paper.
Yeah.
I'd use a felt tip, so pencil, and colour them all in felt tips, and I had stacks of this and pages and pages and pages of it. And she's looking at this career advisor's looking at this thing, and she just went, "You're a graphic designer." And I was like, "A what?" No. And she said, "I'll bring some information in next week for you."
Okay.
And that's pretty much it. That was how I became a graphic designer. So I would have been 15, touching 16 at the time. From then, I went to Wigan College of Technology. And
so how old were you now then? Like 16?
Well, I was kind of 16, so I didn't do A level. So I went straight into a national diploma. And unfortunately, this career advisor, God bless her, advised me wrong again, because what I did was I signed up for a national diploma in graphic design. So I did 2 years national diploma in graphic design. And then they were like, "What do you want to do now?" I said, "I'm going to go to university and do a degree in graphic design." And they said, "No, you can't."
Right.
Why not? You haven't got a foundation art.
Yeah, that's right. Do you know what? I don't think they do that anymore.
I was told to do foundation art for 2 years. I would have then gone on to do a degree in graphic design.
Because that's exactly what I did. I did A levels, and then I couldn't go to the uni I wanted to go to, so I had to do a foundation year first. Which I think even when I was on that foundation year, I think we were the last year to do the foundation year before it completely got abolished, and people could then get in from, you know, whatever background on sort of individual assessment. Whereas up until that point, and obviously for you as well, you had to do that year of foundation, which is, you know.
Well, what happened was I'd done this 2 years of this graphic design course, and then found out obviously that I couldn't then apply for degrees, because degrees wouldn't accept you without a foundation art course. So what I ended up doing is having to do an extra year at Wigan College of Technology as a 1 year's sort of fast track foundation course, which was actually great. I mean, the graphic design course was good. It was the very first introduction to very early Macs. So we used to dabble in that. At the time, I had influences of, say, Neville Brody, Face Magazine and Arena, and his stuff. So I remember that much from that course. And it was a pretty good course. Most of the guys ended up sort of often in sort of YTS schemes in print shops and things like that. And obviously a few of us wanted to extend our education and go on further and do degrees.
Yeah.
So I ended up having to do this foundation art for 1 year. But that was good because what foundation art does, and this is good advice for anybody wanting to have a career in graphic design, is it gets you to experience all different types of art, from sculpture, painting, fine art, photography, fashion. So you kind of play about with all those different mediums, and then from that you can then focus on your chosen.
Well, that's what I did. When I finished my A levels, I started my foundation year basically doing illustration, and by the time I finished that year, I wanted to do graphic design. Even though I'd been doing bits of design, I mainly started thinking, well, half of this course is illustration and live drawing and everything that's going to be brilliant. The other half is like design stuff, which I like, so we'll see how that goes. And then by the time 10 months had rolled by, that's all. I just wanted to do graphic design then. So it's the same thing. It's a great year where you get to experiment in photography and printmaking and all sorts of stuff like that. Is
And I suppose I already had that kind of graphic designer in me from doing those kind of football, I mean sports brands like Sergent and Lacoste. So I already had that in me. So I was pretty focused from a very early age on graphic design, but it was great to then play about with printmaking and sculpturing and illustration and all those things to find out, more, I suppose, in terms of art background. So I'd then done 3 years. So I'd done 2 years National Diploma in Graphic Design, 1 year Foundation Art. And then I decided not to pursue a degree because that was 3 years. So that would mean I would do an extra year. So rather than just doing 2 years foundation, 3 years degree, which is 5 years in total, I ended up doing 2 years graphic design, 1 year foundation, and then
another 3 years.
I didn't want to do a third year, so I ended up applying for a higher national diploma in graphic design at Newcastle College of Art. Which I think it still exists as Northumbria. Can't exactly remember.
Well, that's where John went, Newcastle.
Well, it wasn't the degree course, so I think John Beecher mentioned. I think he went there. He did the degree course, so he would have been at what was then the Polytechnic, whereas I was at the Art College, which was a brilliant time. It was great fun. Met some great people. Some of them, as you know, some of my best friends now are guys I'm on my course. The course itself, I'd say, was pretty gash. It wasn't the best actual course. The guys were, the lecturers were very old school. I mean, I say not the best. I mean, we got to learn some techniques, some graphic design techniques that you guys, growing up in an age where Macs were
just all over the place. We got
to learn all of the traditional graphic design techniques before that. We did have some Macs. We had a room which was like the computer room. You couldn't get in there for love nor money.
Well, that was, well, even on our course, all the years after you went to school, we half of our course was still kind of paced up, but the other half was like we had a really good computer suite. Of course, nobody knew how to use anything, but you got to play around with Photoshop and those sorts of things. So it was, even though it had moved along quite a lot, even at that stage, it wasn't kind of dominating the whole course. Whereas now, I reckon, doing a graphic design course, you're on your Mac day one, because it's just where it is, isn't it? So,
the course
but
surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, I don't know, but sort of the guys, sort of myself, Dave, Phil, Blam, and various others have actually had very good careers from graphics. So, as much as I say it was not a particularly great course, there's some very, very good people come out of it. I've forged a career out of it, a good steady career out of it, and I've enjoyed it.
Because what you've been like 30 years, are you now in the industry, more or less?
I graduated in 92, I think it was.
So nearly.
And then I did my college placement. I'd done a couple of college placements when I was doing my national diploma. in Wigan. So I did a placement in Liverpool at an advertising agency. And when I was on my course on my higher national diploma at Newcastle, we then sort of applied for various design agencies to do a work placement for. And at the time, there was a lot of, I don't know, it seems to have changed now where design companies don't really have the kudos that they used to have. Maybe they still do, I don't know. But at the time, you know, there was companies like Pentagram, Apartments, Small Back Room, Smith and Milton, Manali Tattersfield, you know, great design. And so I applied for some of those, and I ended up getting Beresford Sherman, as you know. So I did I came down to London.
Oh, I didn't realise you did your placement there. That's funny. We
were based in Vauxhall. It was a big company at the time. I think we had about 80 people or so. So it was a decent size at that time.
So before we get to that bit, so you always thought you were going to come down to London then? There wasn't any question of like...
Oh, sorry, I skipped.
No, sorry.
My girlfriend at the time, Melanie, she was based in London doing the London College of Fashion. So she was already in London. I knew London because I'd been down to visit her a few times. So, you know, I just had a headstrong focus. But as soon as I finished at Newcastle,
you were going to come to the big city,
I mean, I could have looked at some places that maybe closer to home around, because around the Wigan area, you've got Liverpool, you've got Manchester. But the richer pickings were in London.
And it's more exciting as well, because you know if you make it in London, then it's a big deal. But if you make it in your local print shop in Wigan, not saying there's anything against that, but it doesn't feel like you've pushed yourself as far as you could, maybe, you know.
Well, you know, there were some good agencies up there, but as I said, the pool was quite small. So, you know, for me, I just had focus on coming to London, really. So as soon as, I mean, I literally walked out of, well, actually, it was Bruce Beresford, your mentor. Who's
one of many.
On my college placements, obviously, I'm one of your mentors.
Taught me everything you know.
So Bruce said to me when I finished the placement and went back to art college in Newcastle, he said to me, when you finish your course, come down to London, come and see us, bring in your book, as he called it, bring in your book. And that's exactly what I did. And I came, you know, probably left college on the Friday, came to Beresford Sherman in London on the Monday and showed him my portfolio. And at the time, this was 92, they were just about hitting a massive recession. And Beresford Sherman was going through some kind of big financial crisis. He said to me, he said, look, we can't really offer you much here. I did, to be honest, I did some work for them for a couple of weeks. And then he said, we can't really offer you, we're not in a position to offer you a job. He said, but there's a company upstairs who's using some of our office space that might be able to offer you something. So I went upstairs and met this guy called Mike, who was running a design agency called The Forum, and they were very much packaging based. They did a lot with Walker's Crisps and Cadbury's and so on. And I walked upstairs and I said, look, I'm here, I'm cheap, and I'm willing. And
that's actually been your life motto.
And that was it. And I set off and got a job.
That's
and
great.
That was me set to go, really.
And it wasn't long after that Beresford's kind of, as it was then, Beresford Sherman went under, didn't it? It sort of closed its doors.
It was very much around. Obviously, it was already happening because Bruce had sort of indicated to me that they weren't in a position to offer me anything. And then what happened was I was in this office space within Beresford Sherman, working for this company called The Forum. And these guys walked in one day, and anyway, they were doing a takeover. So they were buying the company, basically.
Right. Yeah.
This company was called Grey Matter.
Yeah.
They came in and we packed all our stuff up and we moved out to Old Street.
So they just bought you as a job lot and took you off.
They were a product design agency, and they wanted a branding arm to it. And the Forum had been working with them on some wines and spirits packaging.
Yeah.
And so they decided that they needed a branding arm to it. So they sort of poached us. There was only a few of us. There was, I think it was 4 people within the forum. It was a tiny company.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we all packed up our stuff from Vauxhall and moved up to Old Street. And very much not long after that, Beresford Sherman completely went under. So the whole building was cleared out, and that was that. So I ended up then working for the forum at Grey Matter, which then just became Grey Matter. And I was there for 7 years. And I got probably the best 7 years of my career, really.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's weird, isn't it? I wonder if that still happens now, you know, like bigger companies suddenly need an extra arm or another part to them. You know, does that even happen now? I mean, you know, do they buy other companies out like that? They probably not so much these days.
The big agencies now, they all, I can't remember, an MW, was it WP Group or something?
Yeah.
They buy out agents. Anyway, we were just a small outfit taken over and then moved into them. And so I was working at this, essentially what was a product design company, but doing the branding side to it, and it was great. I got on really well with the guys who owned Grey Matter, Kevin Thompson, who's the managing director, and Sean O'Flynn, who's the creative director. Both sadly died a few years back. Way too young. I think Sean was 40.
Gosh, that's no age, is it?
Yeah, and he was such a fantastic artist, designer. He was a product designer essentially.
Yeah.
But he was a real inspiration, real mentor to me. And it was 7 years of just fantastic. It was great fun. It was quite hedonistic. They had loads of money. We had a pool of company cars.
The glory days. Yeah. Okay.
It was fantastic. We had a great social life. We worked hard. We played hard for 7 years. And then when Sean became ill, he had cancer just as around the age of 40. The company was taking a bad turn, mainly because of that.
Yeah.
And we got taken over again. So there's a bit of a pattern here. We got a merger, I should say, with a company called Williams and Poix, which is where I met Joe Fox.
Okay. Oh, I didn't realise you worked with him. I thought you just knew him.
Yeah. So basically, Williams and Poix, who were essentially a annual report design company, came in, sort of took over.
So did they buy Grey Matter then? Was that they? Yeah,
it was a sort of a buyout. I think originally it was a merger slash buyout. But at that time, Sean was deteriorating quite quickly.
Right.
Kevin, the MD, Kevin, who's a good friend of mine, and he sort of when Sean passed, he kind of lost a bit of focus and love for Grey Matter and spoke, of course, with his merger as well. So then I was part of the Williams and Poix team, working with a lot of the guys who do annual reports. I was still very much into brand packaging.
Yeah.
I was still working on drinks, wines and spirits, food packaging, MPD, FMCG, and doing a lot of that. And I kind of lasted about another just over 2 years, I think, at Williams and Poix. And then I started to apply for jobs in other areas, looking for something that was more.
So your time had just run out there. You just decided it was time to move on.
The focus of business wasn't structured for MPD and FMCG. Mainly for I'd say some corporate branding, but a lot of it was print based. A different breed of designer to me. You know, they're all using Express. They used to do like 100-page annual reports, very much detailed. I mean, it was the boss, Mr. Poix, had a very hard work ethic. He used to push them. Everybody was doing 60-hour weeks, 70-hour weeks.
He wouldn't survive today. Like that crunch, that sort of crunch mentality is.
Wouldn't take anything away from it, because those 2 years, I mean, although they were hard work, the learning curve was massive. Actually.
Yeah, sure.
and I met some great people there as well. So yeah, from then I applied for a job. No, I think I went through an agent actually, and they said to me, Beresford's, which was obviously formerly Beresford Sherman, were looking, and I thought, do I really want to go back to somewhere I had a little bit of time in, you know? Anyway, I went for the interview, and of course it was Bruce Beresford again.
Yeah.
And then I went for a second interview and met Laura Haynes, who was running the company as chairman, and they offered me a job as head of brand. It's a great opportunity.
Right in the middle of Oxford Circus.
Right in the middle of Oxford Circus, Argyle Street, as you know.
Great office. Yeah.
A fantastic location.
Yeah, it was great.
Great times. And again, met some great people there. You know,
it's funny that
you remember well.
So you did your placement there, and then you got a job there. Like you said, you finished college on the Friday and started on the Monday.
It was about 8 years later. So I'd done my placement and worked at Grey Matter,
and then went back. But I did the same. I did a placement at Beresford's, and then Laura actually said to me as I was leaving from my placement, "Come back and see us when you finish college." And then I think we had like a thing in London. We were at the New Designers exhibition, like one on a sort of Monday, and I took my book in and showed Bruce, and then I basically got a phone call saying, "When can you start?" And I said, "Monday," and they were like, "Great, see you Monday morning." So I went back to Birmingham, packed my bags. I went home and washed my stuff. Sunday, I was in a hostel in King's Cross. And Monday morning, I started at Beresford's. And then I think a week later, you started.
I think it was almost two weeks later.
Was it 2 weeks later? I know it was soon after I started.
You and Ollie, I think, had started there 2 weeks before me.
It always makes me laugh. I can remember the first time I saw you. You just walked past my desk. And I remember, you said to me that you thought I'd been there for a while or whatever, and I didn't give any illusion that I just started. I gave you this idea that I've been there for years. I thought I'll let that sort of sit there for a bit and see what happens. It was funny.
I remember. And I'd come in as head of brand. I was like, I've got 8 years experience and, coming into this.
I've been there for years.
And you like you were some senior designer or some designer. You were fresh out of college.
I was going to say, look under the table, and I'm wearing, ripped Converse, basically. But yeah, that was funny. I think
we were working on a lot of food packaging, a lot of branding. Real mix, really, actually, from corporate identity to FMCG packaging. Working with Cadbury's again.
We did some Cadbury's jobs together. I rember. Time Out we did for a bit. I think
we did.
We did some late nights.
So that was brilliant. But quite early on in my career move, I realised that head of brand probably wasn't quite suited for me, given maybe some of my experience, but also some of my kind of desires as a graphic designer. I didn't really, I've never been aspired to be a creative director. So to be head of a brand department kind of felt like it was more of a managerial role than it was a creative role. So you know the story, but I sort of suggested to Laura that there's some guy I used to work with at Grey Matter, Jason Butler, and they brought him in and he was my senior at Grey Matter. A few years, and
that's quite a brave thing to do. It's like to sort of say, look, I want to kind of
it was career suicide.
Well, I want to sidestep this role and do something else.
I stepped down as head of brand and became a senior graphic designer. It was career suicide. I mean, yes, maybe I should have just had the nuts to actually continue as.
Yeah, but you would have been unhappy though. It's like John Beecher and his business. He really liked running the business and having all the people and stuff. But after a while, he was running it in a way that meant they would just make him. He was managing everything, just making money to pay the staff to do more design work, and it becomes this kind of machine that he wasn't necessarily doing the kind of creative things that he wanted to be doing, or certainly not as much. So in kind of circumventing that, you're actually allowing yourself to be much more creative and free and not have to deal with all that politics, even though, despite the fact that you did step aside and JB kind of filled that role, you were kind of still doing that job, you know, in a way you were, but without without having to deal with the kind of hard politics side of it, you know, which I
Well,
think.
yeah, to some extent, I was classed as a senior designer, so I was obviously overseeing other designers and freelancers and so forth. But as a career move, maybe I should have stepped. But as I said, I had no great, and I still have no great desire to be a creative director. It's just
Well, I've got some news for you. Guess what you've been doing for the last 3 years?
Well, yeah, but I am the designer as well. I might be.
Yeah, of
I'm
course. Yeah,
director,
yeah,
the creative director, the founder, the chairman,
yeah.
the graphic
Chairman of
designer.
the board. Yeah,
Very much kind of like to keep my hands in, really. I've
yeah.
got friends of mine like Phil Sims at Neighbour. You know, he's been a creative director for a number of years now. And some people can do very well from it. It just wasn't really for me, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got few complaints really in terms of that. In terms of that move. But as you know, then Beresford's became Appetite. We renamed Beresford's into Appetite. And I spent the majority of my career there. Obviously, you moved on after a number of years. I can't remember.
So I was there for like 4.5 years, I think, not quite 5. But I was there for about 4.5, and it was a really good time. You know, I think it's a great job, a great first job to learn all about London, and you know, we had a lot of fun. Yeah, we did. We still have a lot of fun, Stu. But like, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, very good. I mean, I had sort of quite hedonistic times at Grey Matter, and that kind of transferred. Maybe it's me.
I think it was probably you. I think Dave. I think I'd only met you. You'd walk past my desk, and then 2 hours later we were in the pub. So I think that's.
I remember taking you down to the Crown and Two Chairman on Dean Street and introducing you to Dave and Blam.
That's right. Yeah, that was that first day. Yeah.
You know, these guys have all had great careers in graphic design.
Yeah, no, it was good times, and you know, and what was great about being in Oxford Circus is that you come out of the door when you finish work at whatever time, and you're in the middle of everything. So like, you know, you could go, you could go home and cook some pasta and have an early night, or you could go to that really awesome bar just over there, and just, you know, and then, you know,
quite a few bars, and we had a few favourites as well. I always remember Bruce saying to you one time about, why don't you go and rest up for a weekend and sober up or something. I can't remember.
That was probably after a heavy.
Go and sober up over the weekend as opposed to sober up during the week.
Well, it was probably
because
more.
We were out every night.
Yeah.
Monday to Friday.
It could have been a Tuesday, you know, but it was good. It was good fun. But I also think that was like part and parcel of that whole sort of team bonding experience, because when you're in a company of like 80 or 90 odd people, you probably find your sort of select few friends, but you don't know everyone. Whereas when you're in a company of like sort of 10 to 20, like we were, you know, you become really close friends with everyone, you know, and the fact that you all socialize together, you all know each other's business, you're looking out for each other, you know, it's a real sort of family environment. And also when someone leaves, it's devastating, because you're like, it changes the kind of the structure of how everything works, and you know, but it is good, especially like for me coming down, it was like my sort of extended family just appeared. You know, you had like Laura the mum and Bruce the sort of grandfather, you know, so like it was really it was a great experience, you know. And obviously, you know, everyone needs a naughty uncle, so slot you in there, you know. So
absolutely, I mean, it was good times, and I stuck around, as you know, for 18 years.
That's unbelievable. I can't believe it was 18 years. So it was 18 in full.
I joined in 99.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I finished 3 years ago, just over 3 years.
Yeah.
And I fortunately closed for good.
Yeah, but it obviously suited you how it worked, and you know, and like you said, even though you weren't necessarily doing all the kind of the sort of high-end politics stuff, you know, it probably was. It fitted with what you got the opportunity to be creative, and
it was a good career.
You had a team,
it was a good career. I do regret to some extent some of the choices and some of the choices from the leadership within Appetite, in terms of, I was never invited, 18 years, you know, I was never invited to be part of the board.
Yeah.
They
Which you were from like you were, but even though you weren't invited in you know, you were part of that management team, whether it was on paper or not.
to some extent, I was in what we call them, just titles really, but design director. I was design director for many years, and they brought in numerous design directors to come on, be part of the team. So there was 2 design directors. And they moved on, and I stayed there. You know, I was very, very loyal to that company. I loved that company, and you know, then they made me redundant 3 years ago and gave me the most basic of redundancy packages. So,
Sure.
not that I'm bitter, Jason.
Well, I hate all that stuff because
it counts for nothing. I mean, it's disappointing. I mean, that said, I mean, Appetite closed the business for good. Everybody was made redundant.
Sure.
But just the way it was kind
of... Actually, they weren't. It's still going. They just haven't told you. That's how they got you out. They're like, don't tell him, for God's sake.
How are we going to get rid of him? He's been here 18 years.
I want my desk back. Come on, let's go.
So yeah, I miss it. I miss that kind of.
Of course.
Now, as you know, working for yourself can be quite a lonely life. So I do miss that camaraderie we had, that family. The Appetite was a family. Yeah,
sure.
As was Grey Matter before that for me. So I've had.
You do need that as well, though, because like even though I've always sort of preferred to work by myself, there are projects that I work on that I wish there was like another team or another design company working on it at the same time, so that there's a bit of competition, you know, because that's the one thing that I do miss. I do stuff now and I'm like, I've made my decisions, this is it, here's the thing, that's it goes off, it's great, everyone's happy, blah blah blah. But then I think, you know, it's good, but maybe it could have been amazing if someone had done something just a bit better. And I'd be like, no, I've got to do something here, you know. So just to up your game a bit, and I think that's something.
I'm glad you touched on that, because remember how competitive I made you.
Well, we were, and I like
when you left and then other designers came in. I just love the drive. I mean, I don't know. I'm just very passionate about design, and I love it when we get a new brief comes in, and the brief's out to three or 4 designers, and it's like, right, here you go. This is, you know, he's doing his ideas, and you know, you're off there.
It's a thrill. It's a thrill. Also,
I used to get such a buzz out of it, and I do for years. I mean, I was there decades, and I was still going for it, and every brief was a win, and it was like, you know, and I can't remember what I used to say to you, but we would literally be like, you know,
but that was it. If you got you know, everyone's going for it, and if yours comes up and that's the one the client, you know, regardless of what everyone in the office thinks,
it's a buzz.
You know, as soon, you know, because you know that like someone in the office might like something that you did, someone might like something that someone else did, someone might like something that I did, but maybe the weight's on you know, another sort of route. But we present all the routes, and then it comes back from the client and they go with something totally different, and it's a win. Suddenly you're like, I knew that, you know, I felt that, you know, you get that buzz when you're like, okay, I'm one up here, and then it starts again in an hour, you know. So like that
I really miss that side of the business at the moment, because working for myself, you know, my designs always get through because it's only me working on it.
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, I miss that kind of rivalry, competitiveness, working with other designers.
Yeah. It's it does push you to do, you know, not to say that your work would be better necessarily, but it does make you hungrier to do something really, really good, you know, when you've got that sort of competition. And it's also nothing better than someone doing something and it absolutely tanking when you're doing the crit, you know, and everyone's like, what is that? You know, there's nothing better than that. And everyone's...
I used to, I mean, I just remember working with some designers and getting a brief. And, you know, I had loads of experience as a design director, and I'd put in so much effort into the creative first stage, and we'd stick it all on the walls in the boardroom, and the team would come in, you know, you'd have Laura and JB, the creative director, and you'd have all these, you know, people come in and then they'd stand there looking at the walls and all looking. And I had all this stuff up, pages and pages of ideas, and I'm like, one of the designers had just stuck up a couple of A4s with like a bit of a drawing on it, and a bit of, and I'm thinking, you know, and you know, for me, I was like, I'm going to win this.
I'm going to win it by volume, if not quality.
but just expressing the idea more.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I just never got it sometimes with designers. They just didn't really, they go and go, oh, I don't like that brief. You're not in a position to choose.
No. It's not personal. It's your job.
Regardless, it doesn't have to be the coolest brand in the world, but somebody's paying good money for this.
Yeah. But that was always what interested me, and still, yeah, exactly, yeah. But I mean, that's what interested me is like the, you're right, is that you might look at a brief and think that's not really me, or you might look at another brief and think, oh, that's more me, but you still approach it in the same way. And I always approach it in the like, here's your box that I'm putting you in, here's the thing that we need, sort of push against it, or just try and do something different. Here's a time, what I always like is when someone says, you've got 2 hours to do something. And then you're just like straight in, I've got 2 hours. What's the best thing I can do in 2 hours? And you do it. And after 2 hours, you're like, is it amazing? No, but it's the best thing I could do in 2 hours, and I'm pleased with it. And
I love those quick briefs. Come and you got a day, right? You got to deliver, you got to do this.
It's a thrill. Yeah, it's a thrill. But you're right. It's like when you feel like that, and then you're suddenly faced with someone who's just like, I've just done this, or here's a sort of the minimal effort. It's like
I didn't
just demoralizing. You just feel like, really, maybe.
Come on.
Yeah.
So I've worked with a few of those designers over the years. I mean, some of them good, very good designers, but you've got to apply. And I've never been overly precious about my design. There's some designers who have a certain style, for example, and stick to it.
Yeah.
Other designers design for designers.
Yeah, sure.
A few of those over the years.
Yeah, but they're the ones that do well in.
Post it on some design blog, and they want it to be, praised and liked by their peers.
Yeah, but they're the ones that do well in the critiques. But then when the client sees it, it doesn't always.
I work for the clients. I always work for the brief. What is the brief? What's for customer? What's for customer's need? What's for client's needs?
Yes.
Who's it to do that? So, I never had sort of any kind of like arrogance in terms of my design. It was delivered for the client. This is what you wanted.
Yeah, but that's it. I think that's an essential skill. I think that's an essential skill as a designer, is that you have to understand that you're becoming like an extension of that business that you're working for. You have to understand how it works. You have to understand where it sits, where they want to go, what they're trying to achieve. Whereas if anyone can just sit down in a room and do a logo and like, here's the most amazing piece of graphic design logo that everyone goes, oh, that's brilliant. But the client's like, that doesn't fit the brief, So part of that understanding the brief is understanding the client before you even put your pen on the paper. You have that understanding is a skill that I don't think they can necessarily teach that in school. So it comes from experience.
Yeah, a lot of it's just intuitiveness as well. Now it's sort of
true.
Experience as well. You kind of go, I've got this. You hear somebody's chatting about, oh, I've got an idea for a company I want to set up. And they start to tell me about it, and within minutes, I'm designing it in my head.
Yeah, sure.
It's experience, but it's like, right, okay, I've got it. I know what it should look like.
Yeah, sure.
I still get a great buzz out to do.
Yeah, I think that's why when you have work placements, it always feels there's different types of work placements. There's the ones that come in and can't be bothered, and there's the ones that come in that are good, but they're not very confident, because they haven't had enough experience, or maybe they see all these great designers and they're suddenly like intimidated by these people who are doing it, because I know when we were at Beresford's Appetite, I know towards the end of the time I was there, I would always end up being the guy that looked after the placements, because obviously as a kind of lowly junior / middleweight whatever,
I found a girl asleep at the desk. She was on a 2-week placement. She actually had her arms on the desk and was asleep. Asked her to leave.
It's not good, is it? Because those opportunities, there's so many people that want those jobs. There's so many people that want to get into it. And then someone comes along and does something like that. And it's just all the people that could have had that place, that could have had that opportunity, they just suffer for it. And
Well, going back to my early career, when I started as a Beresford chairman when I first moved to London. I was literally there for a couple of weeks and then moved to the Forum upstairs. But I was just like running around. I was like, we used to go and do typesetting, this is before computer, so we do types, and I've been running up and down to the typesetters and backs with the artworkers, and everything, in the dark room on the I can't remember what we used to call it now, the making bromides and things like that, and I used to love all that, and speaking to the older guys. So this was just on my work experience, or when I first started, I was just, I was just running for everything. It was just great. I wanted to absorb and learn. Yeah. And I think one of your questions later on is about what advice can you offer? I think the advice is, be passionate about what you're doing. If you're not passionate about it, don't do it.
Yeah, it's probably not for you, is it? If it doesn't click. Yeah.
I've been a graphic designer since the careers advisor at the age of 15.
Yeah.
So, and I'm still passionate about it now after 30 years.
Yeah.
I still enjoy it. And if you're not, then, try something else.
Yeah, sure.
Because, as I said, these work experience people, junior designers come in and you kind of go, well, you're not really.
Yeah.
I've been learning Adobe Dimensions this morning in 3D.
Yeah.
Learning Adobe Premiere last week, just trying new things out, practice.
Yeah. But I think that's what you got to do. You got to because you didn't start off wanting to be a graphic designer, being a graphic designer when you were like 15, thinking, oh, one day I'm going to do Adobe Premiere. That never even occurred to you, because that's just a tool to get you to where you want to go. The idea is that you're passionate about it and you like being creative and you have ideas about things. That's the first thing anyone should have before they go for a placement or start a job, is feel that way, and the rest just comes because you use it enough, you apply these things enough, then eventually it all fits together. I mean, I'm the same. I've been, with doing all this stuff, I've been learning about recording sound, studio lighting, all this stuff that just isn't, that takes me out of my comfort zone, and Premiere, cutting video together, all that stuff. It's just a great way to just, to keep learning that stuff.
These days, in terms of, once you've got the Adobe suite, you can add all these different applications. And you can find out how to do it just by going onto YouTube. So it's great.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think with what we do, you kind of don't really need to know it until it's in your face, and you're suddenly like, oh, I need to build some 3D packaging on screen. I could draw it all up in Illustrator, or I could put it together in a different way, or, so, until it becomes an issue, you overcome that by going to that technology, rather than just sitting down with the manual on day one and being like, right, I'm going to learn how to teach myself.
You used to get those thick books, didn't you? Remember, Adobe InDesign when it first.
I'd get them for Christmas presents and stuff.
The manual for Quark Express, and you'd be looking to how to turn something. I mean, oh my God. It's so easy, it's so accessible. You just need a decent Mac, Adobe Creative Suite,
and a little bit of time to make some mistakes.
You can come with it.
Yeah.
And there's so much design influence now available. Where I remember for a long time in my career, I was cutting out magazines, and we used to get Getty images, stock image books, and illustration books, and you cut them out and make mood boards and all of that.
Yeah. Those days are gone. Yeah, I think Pinterest put pay to any mood board. I think now you just chuck everything on there, and
Pinterest is fantastic.
But can you imagine if you had that 20 years ago? It blows my mind, the stuff that's on there.
I'd have snorted a lot less spray, mate. That's for sure.
It wasn't a good day unless you were stuck to everything. I'm off now. Yeah, exactly. Got a pencil stuck to your face. Yeah, I'm sure health and safety would have got something to say about that now. But I think that stuff goes in your lungs and never comes out. So
I'm sure there's some effect on me from the amount of spray amount.
Yeah, although I do miss the days of, even when I started at Beresford's, we were still printing out stuff, mounting it on foam board, packaging it up. The courier would be there at 5 o'clock at night. You'd be stood at the door waiting, and you're there. Is it ready? And everyone's stressing, trying to get everything in the. It was always
hours and hours and hours of waiting for this printer, or when you were mounting it onto a piece of foam cord, and you'd spray mount it using the roller, and then you get a crease.
God,
again.
And then yeah, and it was stressful. But when it went out the door, when you knew it was
Oh,
done and the courier got it and it was off, it was out of
yeah.
your hands then. That feeling of relief. There is nothing like the building pressure, and then suddenly it's like, it's gone. You don't have to do any more on this for a bit. And then you're like, oh, thank God for that. It's like, yeah, it was good
Good
times.
time.
But, but again, that sort of culture of, I mentioned it before, like crunch mentality. I think, I do think that that's sort of gone by the wayside a little bit more. I like to think now people who employ their designers and that they don't push them as much as they maybe would have done in the past. I mean, I know you and I did like 2-3 o'clockers quite regularly. It's just, and actually you wouldn't have done it really unless you wanted to, but it still
Work
needed to get done.
60-hour weeks easily, and as I said, I worked at that Williams and Clough for a while. I'd do
Yeah.
more hours than that,
Yeah,
every
sure.
nights, but we worked hard and we played hard
Yeah.
and enjoyed it. We enjoyed
Yeah,
doing
sure.
it.
But I guess you can't keep it up for
financially, but the rewards creatively were very good.
yeah, sure. Yeah, and I guess when you're that age, you're young enough and it doesn't matter. But like, when you're mid-40s to 50s, you don't want to be doing 3 o'clockers every single night. It's just not, not feasible.
I've myself for 3 years now, and I haven't worked past 7 p.m.
I was going to say, like, on occasion where I work till like midnight or something like that, the next day I'm done. I'm like,
to be honest, I had this attitude when I was at Appetite, where when I knew it was going to be a big job and it was heading for a late night,
yeah,
because it was a big presentation the following day. I'd go in there with pure focus and drive, and I'd be like, fast. Knew what I was doing, knew what I wanted to achieve for that day to get it out.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember when I was working, you probably wouldn't remember this, but like Jason Butler, the creative director, he'd have a different mentality. He was like, he knew he was going to be working late. And he lived way out of London.
Yeah.
He used to cycle half away, and then he kind of knew that he was probably going to be sleeping on the sofa in the office.
Sure.
He had a very different attitude to it, where he would just carry on the day quite slow and
quite zen.
It used to drive me mad. I want to be out of here by 8 p.m. at the latest.
Yeah, and that's the right mentality to have.
10, 11 o'clock at night, but he'd be working till 3 or 4 in the morning on this.
Yeah.
Because he just had that kind of mindset, whereas my mindset was like, get it done now.
Yeah, sure. So where did we get to in terms of our questions? Because we skipped a few ahead.
Well,
so we did London. We did the kind of important thing you learned from your. We sort of did that bit. So challenges you faced, during your journey. I guess we're sort of on question 6, I think, which is, let's talk about a piece of work you have done that didn't go well, and something you might like to go back to, revise, or just never think about again.
I'm not massively proud or precious or whatever about the work I've done.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be what it looks like, but just one that didn't go well, or one that you think.
There's a classic story. We were working on a brand identity for a big building company. They build and rent out office spaces. They were called Slough Estates International at the time. They came in they're based essentially over in Slough, but then they've got places in Warsaw in Poland. They're all over in Spain. They were a big company. So a lot of these big kind of car sales buildings and big offices and stuff. Anyway, so it was a big design brief for us for Appetite, and we were working on that. And we come up with some. We had to do a naming exercise as well, because they were called Slough Estates, but they were bigger than just being in Slough. So we wanted to rebrand, rename, which is something that Appetite offered. So we did naming and identity design. And one of the things we did, I should say, is we renamed them. We sort of shortened the name. So instead of calling them Slough Estates International, we decided to call them Segro. And I'm just going to write it down on a piece of paper for you.
All right. For all you listeners out there, Stu is writing down.
So if you can,
Okay.
if you can see that.
Yeah, I got it.
So that's what Slough Estates International Group.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So we did this identity, worked on it. It was my identity, my chosen logo. So it's all brilliant. I was chuffed to bits.
Yeah.
Big project, loads of boards, loads of like applications to van livery and signage and all kinds of stuff. And because it was such a big company, we had to go and present it to the shareholders in the city. So our managing director and marketing directors and all went to this big presentation of this brand identity. And one of us smart aleck city boys sort of put his hand up and said, no, I don't know if his hat is. I'll tell you what, I'm going to just bear with me a second.
You're right, you're right. For anyone listening, Stu's writing again.
Yeah.
He's just doing a little bit of this is design happening before our very eyes. Like
So he put his hand up and said, when you look at that logo, and it was obviously not that logo, but that was the letters on the logo. He said, if you look at it in reverse, i.e. in a rear view mirror of a car, you get... you see it, is that?
Orgies. Yeah. I love it.
Orgies. So this was just like, boom, you know, this corporate. There was the guys from Slough Estates International. There was our team there.
Oh my God.
It was like, I remember Sheila came back to Appetite and she was just white as a sheet.
Oh my God. The thing is, like, you can only prepare for so much, but like, you know, but that's right. In the reflection of your wing mirror as the van goes by, it says orgies.
Nobody spotted it. So what we ended up doing, just as a quick fix, was take out the I. So it became SEGRO, Segro, and that's what it is today. So it's still that's a story of what.
But to be fair, that's the time to catch that. You know, that's the time when you're just like, that's the last minute to catch.
I haven't gone to print on anything.
No, I was going to say, what you don't want is it driving past you while you're on the motorway, and it's like that says orgies on the back of that van.
And it's something I do now as well. I work when I'm working with other designers. When I used to be a lot, you know, working at Appetite. When I used to work with designers. Yeah, I'd say, you know, stand back, squint, turn it upside down, look at it, just see if you can see something. I still do it now when I'm doing like photography. So if I'm art directing a photo shoot, I do a lot of food photography photo shoot. So I'm doing art direction. So you're looking at this mess of, I don't know, tagliatelle or something in this plate. It's like, stand back, look at it, see if there's anything glaringly obvious in there that looks like a boobs or something.
I was going to say, like, no one wants to...
You just like,
there's a cock and balls in your sausage and mash.
Cock and balls. You do not want the cock and balls in sausage and mash.
Actually, that's tough. It's funny because your business partner, Ian Wilkinson, he took me on my first photo shoot when I was on a placement, and it was I think it was sausage and meatballs, and that was something that he was facing. But that was when it was like a proper studio, lights, camera action. You know, they'd snap the Polaroid, it'd go off by courier to be processed and come back again, and you know. But that was something. Even then, I remember him saying to me about that, of saying, like, you know, you never know what looks good through the camera. You look at it on screen or in situ. You know, you've got to be careful where the type sits and what kind of, you know, what other message you could be sending.
Stand back and look at it and just see if there's anything glaringly obvious. Yeah. But somebody else might see it.
The orgies one is an easy one to miss, though.
It was quite a good.
But in a way, I'll tell you this now, Stu. If I'd have say we were working on that job and I'd have spotted that halfway through, I wouldn't have said anything. I'd have been like, yeah, Seagull, and everyone would be like, yeah, and I'd be in that final meeting where everyone's signing it off, and I'd be like, I wouldn't mention anything about that. And maybe after 4 or 5 years, I'd say to you, "Oi, Stu, you know what that says backwards, don't you?" I like stuff like that.
That was a story. What was the piece of work you've done that didn't go well?
So that was it. So yeah, that's a good one. To say it didn't go well, that's an easy. That's a good one because you don't always do that, especially when you're working at speed and you've got all this time pressure and you're like, I've got to deliver this, and you've got deadlines.
We've had this for weeks. We've been developing this logo in every different space, and we put it on walls and boards. It was everywhere.
Yeah.
We plastered the walls with stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody spotted it. It was only this smart aleck just sat there and went,
yeah. But like I said, better. But again, that's the other thing, which is like, all right, so maybe it's not the speed of the pressure. Maybe it's because you had too much time, and you suddenly you can't see the wood for the trees.
Well, there is an element to that, I suppose. But yeah, you've got to look at it with fresh eyes, squint, turn it upside down, all these things.
So okay, so
proud of is a
question 7 is let's talk about a piece of work that you're proud of. It could be more than one. If that guy hadn't spot the orgies one, that was definitely the winner, by the way.
yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, my career, my portfolio as such, in terms of all the stuff I've worked on, it was nothing's like massively like wow. I mean, my mate Blam, he designed the train spotting poster. I mean, what's a piece of work you're most proud of?
It's a good one. Yeah. But then I guess it's how you kind of
the cream logo.
But it's what kind of
Jamiroquai logo. I mean, what did I do? I did some Cadbury's Time Out packaging.
Yeah, but I think that's because the exposure of those things probably makes them. You kind of think that. But I think some of my favourite bits of work that I've done are like routes that didn't even get picked. The sort of logos that I do. You do something. You do a logo and you think that's the bollocks, that one, that's the one, and then they do something else. So there's a bit of that. But
I don't know, I've worked on some great stuff over years. One of the projects I worked on at Grey Matter, which was fantastic to work on, was the London Rubber Company was the client, and the brand was Durex condoms.
Oh, okay, cool.
It was such a brilliant experience from start to finish. I mean, it was huge. We did research. We had focus groups. We even had focus groups with a group of prostitutes. We actually got prostitutes, 3 or 4, and we did a focus group talking about the use of condoms. What type? Because at the time, Durex condoms had I think it was 13 different products. So you go into Boots and there was 13 different products. The ones that are in the vending machines in the men's toilets, different ways. One with the Ferrari on it or the speedboat.
But they all look the same, more or less, at that point.
Our job at Grey Matter was to consolidate the brands, look at each one, brought it down to I think six products in the end. But that was a huge project in terms of the research into the condom world, I suppose. Talking to everybody from married couples, gay sex, and every different usage you could have. Rough sex, I used to call it.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to. No, we weren't allowed. Seriously, Sean, the creative director, guy I mentioned earlier, was gay, but he never really. You wouldn't have really known, actually, having just met him and stuff. But the company, the client, refused to acknowledge that the Durex Ultra Strong brand was predominantly used for anal sex.
Yeah.
And
that's such a massive mistake. I mean, how long did it take for them to realise that actually?
But we were just, Sean, I remember being very pissed off with the client about it, their attitude towards it. It was just a complete denial about who uses that particular product. And they used to call it rough sex. So, but
which actually, to me, sounds much worse.
It was a great project to work on, and they chose my type. So we standardised everything. So we standardised colours, we standardised type. I remember, I think the font was Rotis at the time. We used, and then we had to do the second half of the pack was the imagery for it. I remember Jason Butler mentioned he went on a photo shoot for the Featherlight brand. Yeah. And it was basically, we'd chosen models, a male and a female model, to perform sex all day. And this photographer just shot them, sort of simulating sex all day. And then we had to look through all the transparencies and and pick out the best shot that was then used on the pack.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the biggest regret was I didn't get asked to go on my shoots.
Yeah, well, you know, firstly, they didn't ask you to model. That's a mistake.
No, it's certainly not.
Secondly, yeah, I've had experience of that in the past as well, where you're sort of, you know, you've got a brief, you're taking it, you know, you're working on this stuff, you're doing all this design work. It gets to a certain point where you've done this thing, and you know, we need to do a photo shoot in Barcelona, and you're like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then they're like, but maybe not you. You know, you're just inexperienced, or it doesn't.
I had a great one. Again, a huge disappointment. We'd worked on Havana Club rum, again for Grey Matter. We designed the bottle because Grey Matter was product design, so they designed the bottle, and I did the branding for it. And it was fantastic. It was all for the duty-free market, and apparently the story goes that this particular blend of Havana Club rum was named by Fidel Castro himself, where they brought him a sample. And he tasted it and he said exquisito, and that's what they decided to call this particular duty-free brand of Havana Club. And from that, the idea was to go to Cuba on a photo shoot, because part of the design I'd done, which was a lot of it to do with the marketing and merchandising around it within the duty-free, was very much in kind of like graffiti and, you know, Che Guevara sprayed on the walls.
Yeah.
The idea was I was going to go to Cuba, Havana, and photograph all this different graffiti.
Of which there would have been some amazing, I'm sure there still is a lot of amazing street art.
And it was all on, it was all set up. And apparently we were also going to collect, whilst we were there, we were going to collect a signature of Fidel Castro. And the idea was we'd scan that in, and that was going to be applied to the label, brand, marketing.
Great job,
It was all, I mean, literally, I think it was like a week before I was due to fly out there, the client decided to pull it for some reason. And we didn't we did the job, but we didn't do the shoot.
It's heartbreaking,
We ended up having to use Getty Images.
Yeah.
I was absolutely gutted.
Well, I told you that time when in my the job that I moved to after Beresford at Owen Dwelly, we were photographing some shoes for Lacoste. We used to do loads of footwear, and one of the it was I can't remember if it was 40 years, might have been 40 years of this particular Lacoste shoe. They really wanted to throw some money at it and make it really great, and we got to the point where we'd contacted David Bailey to do the photo shoot. And me and Ben were going to get to go on this photo shoot, and it was going to be amazing. And we've been in touch with him, and he was it was something like a day rate for him at the time was something like 180 grand or something like that. And his assistant was 50. It was something ridiculous. It was high. And and it literally got to the point where we were waiting for the phone call to find out if they were going to go for it. And then they just pulled it. And it would have been the most amazing, just to stand at the back of a room while he literally went, earned the money, and off he went, But in the end, we just used a photographer we always used, and he just did it in the style of David Bailey, and he cost about 200 quid or something, and he did a brilliant job, and it went on everything. And I was just like that, and whenever I see it now, I think it was a good project to be involved with, but it could have been this amazing experience, and it just turned out to not be quite right. But yeah, it's when that happens, it's a bit of a bummer, but we're meant to stay inside, Stu. That's what it is. You're meant to be locked down in a dungeon somewhere, just working, not being out there in the real world.
Well, I know, yeah. Friends of mine like Phil and Dave and that, they've travelled all over the world. They were working in the music industry a lot. So, and Phil still does now. He does a lot of sort of stuff with big brands and travels.
Yeah, sure.
All over, they've just done some amazing photo shoots with Helen von Unwerth and Rankin. And I haven't.
Yeah. No, but that's but I guess that's one of those things where
I did get to go to the Faroe Islands. That was a fantastic photo shoot. I did the Faroe Islands for an oil company shoot, working with a guy called Andrew Molyneux, corporate photographer, fantastic guy. And we also, Andrew and I, did a photo shoot on an oil rig on the North Sea.
You told me about. Did you have you had helicopter training for that?
We had to. We were only allowed to go on the oil rig for 24 hours. So the shoot was over 24 hours.
Yeah.
And before that, you had to go for 3 days health and safety training.
Yeah.
The majority of
That's
us
cool.
3 days, apart, you did the usual kind of fire stuff. What happens, you had to learn all about different types of fires, gas fires,
Yeah.
and to put these gas masks on and walk through smoke-filled rooms, and we had to test your hearing, your eyes, all this stuff. But the majority of it was all about the helicopter crashing in the North Sea. So what happens if, or the event that the helicopter crashes in the North Sea? So they had this helicopter simulator over a deep pool, and you were in it, and you're all in your gear, full like this kind of helicopter dry suit that you had to wear. And then they'd crash this helicopter simulator into brace, and you'd go into turn upside down and sink. And you had to escape from the seatbelt and swim out. And I absolutely loved it.
Oh, man.
Scuba diving, as you know. So
Yeah.
it was a great experience, just to do.
So did you have tanks on and everything, or were you just
no, you don't, because when you're in a helicopter, you have to wear this kind of like, it's essentially like a diver's dry suit. So it's like a baggy suit with rubberized seals around the arms and you have to wear 2 layers of clothing underneath because it's incredibly cold in the North Sea.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you reckon you last about 7 minutes before.
Right. Oh my gosh, yeah.
We haven't got much chance unless you get into the lifeboat. And one of the things was do the lifeboat training as well. So what happens is you swim out of the crashed helicopter, inflate the lifeboat, climb in and grab your colleagues and get them into it as well.
Yeah.
So that was a great. Sorry, what was the question about that?
No, but we were just talking about things that you enjoyed, and we've ended up sort of down the line of talking about some of the experiences that you've had.
No, but it was great. And then obviously we get into this big helicopter and fly out. It was a 2-hour flight across the North Sea to get to this
cool,
room.
yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
Spent 24 hours on there and flew back. I just loved it. It was great.
Any job that comes up like that there's an opportunity to get, that you're lucky enough to get filtered down to the very few that get to go on the shoot or get to do something exciting like that. It's a buzz. I mean, that's the side of the design, advertising brand industry that I don't really think about that when I was at college. I didn't think, oh, one day I'll be doing such and such. You just concentrate on the work, but it takes you to these interesting places sometimes.
If you can be good. That's the tip. Be good at art direction. If you're good at art direction, you get to go on the trips.
Yeah, no, exactly. And also, it's funny how some jobs you do for people lead to other jobs that turn into other things, and suddenly you find yourself in situations that you could never have orchestrated. It just happened that you were doing this design thing, and it ended up being you that went on there. And because I always think about one of my because when I started working in London, I didn't think 20 odd years later that one of my clients would be introducing me to Luke Skywalker, right? Because I met him at a client thing that I ended up going along to, and suddenly the kid in me was like, this is just bananas, So I love the way that you do what you do, and then these things just kind of happen around you, and you're lucky if you get involved, you get a chance to do them,
I mean, this is a great career, Jason.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it's
I used to always joke about it's about time I got a proper job.
Yeah.
But I've had some good times, and I've got very good friends, including your good self, who are all in the industry.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends are graphic designers or various parts of
sort of creatives. Yeah.
And I just feel very privileged to
But it's also because everybody's got a fun story or something they do, especially when creative people that have been doing it for a while. They've all got a story about something. There's always an experience. I think that's partly why I started doing these little interviews, is because while the questions are the same, everybody's answers are so different. They're so varied and from all over different.
Good for a story, Jay.
Well, mate, don't worry. I might invite you back. But the helicopter diaries over the North Sea. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the next question is which is question 8, which is what are you doing now, and what's the next sort of step for you? Do you think? What do you think you're?
I've never had a career plan at all.
But you
Obviously,
just keep doing what you're doing, you know. It's
since the close of Appetite 3 years ago, I set up Packworks Limited, I should say, with myself and Ian Wilkinson. We've been working. I'd say the vast majority is probably 100% for Spa food packaging.
Yeah.
And we've been incredibly lucky to have that as a client. So that set us up straight away from the minute, you know, Appetite closed to
Well, you work for them. You've had contacts there for a long time.
20 years. So
Yeah.
I've had a lot of experience of working with them, and they're a very good client. And we have a good relationship. Hopefully, long may it continue.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of food packaging. Today, I'm working on fruit smoothies.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was working on mozzarella packaging.
Yeah, but that's great. You see, especially in these times when, like, you know, it work's scarce and people working from home and adapting, all this, you know, and the coronavirus, etc. The fact that, like, you can continue working from home and your business doesn't really change that much. You're just,
it's
you
not
know,
changed at all. I've been incredibly fortunate since this whole virus thing. I just literally moved my computer to home, out of my office, and moved it home, plugged it in, and continued to work. So very fortunate. I know people like that can't work in this current situation. And you know, of course, with the client as well, it's a lot of it's in the food industries, and everybody's still eating food from the supermarket.
Yeah.
You know, there's still a need. So the briefs are still coming in. So incredibly lucky to do that. I'm also working, because I've got this Serjent Design Limited, which is another kind of side. Well, it's not a side passion; it's just a separate thing. I do, you know, as you know, brand identity and stuff. And I just like doing stuff for friends or for people I think, you know, could do a little bit of help and push. Like with some girl who I met in the office who wanted to do food nutrition, so I designed her an identity.
Yeah.
I've got friends who have just set up they have a setup for a security firm and security training. They're good friends of mine, so I just said, look, I can do your branding. So doing that, you know.
But that's good, because that opens up opportunities, you know.
So working on that. So, and then I've got a conference call tomorrow with New York and Sydney, so very international. Belgium, I believe. For brand identity. Again, something I picked up quite recently for a kind of sustainability company. So I'll be working on that also. I think over the next few weeks, I'm going to be very busy.
That's good. That's good. Because, you know, it is, you know, there's not that much new business out there, but, you know, because people are just in this sort of holding pattern, and they're not kind of, you know, they don't know what's going to happen in the next coming months, and that. So obviously everyone's very reticent. But, you know,
I mean, I've been fortunate enough not really had any need to find new business.
But also as a smaller company, your overheads are so low. You know, you're not paying out for a big office. I know you do have a studio, but, like, you know, you're not paying out for a big office full of people that you're having to furlough or pay their salaries and, you know, all that stuff. I mean, like, you know, and I don't know if our jobs existed 20 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Because we're from a time where you were in a studio with people.
You could have done this 20 years ago. You couldn't just have one computer and Wi-Fi and a software
and do it all.
Do the whole thing.
Yeah, sure. So maybe that's why, you know, you were saying about you know, when you're at school and you wanted to go to bigger design companies, and you had there were all those big Pentagram and, you know, all those companies that you really held in high esteem, and, you know, a lot of them still around, but they're kind of like the old guard, if you like. Now I think there's less sort of funky little
change names, so I wouldn't even know what.
True, there is that, but also I think there's more people like you and I that run their smaller businesses from home, and if they do employ people, all those people work from home too. So it's not like, you know, I don't know if those larger companies are kind of you know, are sort of starting up every day. It's much more, you know, smaller businesses or freelancers that tend to go it themselves. So I can remember finishing college and thinking, oh, one day I'll go freelance, but that must be like 10 years away. It didn't even occur to me that, like, you could just leave college and do it straight away, which people do now. You know, they go straight into it, you know. I felt like I needed to cut my teeth working before I tried that part of it. But now people leave college and they set up their own businesses with people they've met at college, and they do really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the industry has changed an awful lot. I mean, I mentioned we don't have any. There's no more heroes anymore, to quote the Stranglers.
Oh,
We used to have. I mean, I think I even lectured you when I first met you. It's like,
probably.
You didn't know who Peter Saville was, and I was like, what?
He's one of the goons.
I mean, these are just.
That's a Peter Sellers joke for anyone that's.
Sorry, I meant this. We
had dinner next to him once.
When I was a young designer setting up, with Neville Brody.
Yeah.
Saville,
Vaughan Oliver.
Vaughan Oliver. I wasn't a massive fan of Vaughan Oliver's work, but I can certainly appreciate it. Yeah. And then you learn about some of the real gurus like Alan Fletcher and Paul Rand.
Yeah.
But
I think those designers, will always be there. They're the greats.
You find out a few years later. But I had my initial heroes. I think were probably influenced through Neville Brody.
Yeah.
Certainly 15, 16 years old.
Well, I always liked David Carson.
David Carson. Yeah. So we always used to have heroes, and I just don't know anymore if there are any of those design heroes out there. Really.
Maybe it's you, Stu. Maybe if you don't know, maybe it's you.
I know there's some excellent designers out there, but are there anybody really who people follow and hold?
Yeah, it's different now, isn't it?
Peter Saville used to create an album sleeve,
Yeah. Wow. But actually, just saying about Peter Saville, I remember, this is going back, but we were having dinner. I think we were having dinner with Bruce in the Groucho Club back in the day, and he was next to us having a salad.
And some very good, nice-looking girls. I remember
that was a good time because we used to do quite a few things at the Groucho Club, didn't we? Because the creative director was a member there, and we'd hire rooms and stuff. And those events were great because I've always been like a massive starstruck. Anyone even remotely famous. I remember the first time I came to London, I saw a guy who was in Arth Wiedersehen Pet in an arcade store, and I was like, I've got to tell my dad. It's like. But like when we used to go to the Groucho, we used to see all sorts of people. Like I'd be constantly telling me that, like Letitia Dean we saw once, which I was just like, it's Letitia Dean, EastEnders and all that. But
did you bump into Kelly from the Stereophonics
in the toilet? Yeah, he was just stood next to me. Yeah, and then 3 days later, I was at Glastonbury, and he was playing on stage to about 80,000 people. It was unbelievable. But the first time we ever went to the Groucho Club, I took because it's easy to get lost in there. There's so many little rooms and things. I took a wrong turn in one of the rooms and just walked into this room that was basically empty. And there were 3 chairs, and it was Damien Hirst, Keith Allen, and who's the guy from Pulp? Jarvis Cocker. And they were just sat having a beer and a chat. And I just walked in and went, oh, sorry. And they were like, you're all right. And then I went out and I was like, this is so cool. I love all that stuff. I love it. Any style. But you used to see more than I did. You'd always see them on Oxford Street, like Jordan. Yeah. I remember there was a spot once and, all those guys. But anyway, that's digressing slightly. But yeah, no, it was definitely a little hotspot where we were in at that time, definitely. So question 9. We're fast approaching the end now. We're doing good for time as well. We're not going to hit the 2 hour 50, but hour and a half. Yeah, that's kind of the time I want to keep it to, so it's not too long. But we're doing good. So yeah, I know you started saying it before, but do you have any advice for anyone starting out in the industry, and maybe something you would have liked to have known before you started?
I'd have liked to have known that Macs were just about to launch and be a major. I would have gone into that computer room at the college. I had no clue at all.
Yeah.
I designed an Abbey National annual report on a Mac Classic. Yeah. It was like a 30,000 print run. It was a massive print run.
Oh my God.
And I designed it on a Mac Classic using Quark Express or PageMaker, probably actually.
Yeah. That's an achievement in itself, Stu, because like if you see those now, it's like, oh my God, the screens are so small and like they're all beige and
advice for people, I don't know, be passionate about it. Do it because you enjoy it. There's so many different ways of graphic. It's not just graphic design, branding in all aspects of it. You know, do it because you enjoy it. But also, I think my best advice for people is, I think we touched on it earlier, was about answer the bloody brief. If the client asks for something, okay, yes, advise them and say, well, I think you'd be better off if you did it like this. But try and answer the brief. You know, don't just design it because you want another designer mate of yours or the Instagram account to, you know, get so many likes. Answer the bloody brief.
Yeah.
But be passionate about what you do and enjoy it. It's a great career. You're never going to get massively rich off it. And
but it's a steady job. You don't have to have a real job, like you said. So
you know, it was good advice is work hard, because
work hard.
It does take the hours as well. You know, don't expect it all just to fall. Practice is another good bit of advice. I've been working with a young lad recently, Luke. He's, you know, fairly fresh out of college, and I just keep telling him, you just try, practice. Adobe, InDesign, Illustrator, Photoshop, whatever it is, just set yourself little briefs and practice, because it's just, you know, it's that Malcolm Gladwell book, you know, Outliers and stuff, or was the one, it's about the putting in the 10,000 hours.
Yes, yeah.
The Beatles didn't become the Beatles. We suddenly, you know,
they practice.
They used to play in that Hamburg nightclub every single night, hours and hours and hours and hours before they became famous.
Yeah, sure.
And you know, I became pretty proficient at what I do in terms of my skills in the, you know, mainly Adobe. Through time.
Yeah. And that's it. And also not being afraid to kind of fail at things as well, because like you said, like to sort of practice things, you know, and put ideas forward, like you said, you know, when we were talking about like the competitive nature of putting stuff up, it's okay to take risks. You know, it's a good time to sort of make mistakes, and you know, and like you said, you know, the more you practice, the better you get at getting a feel for what's right for a brief and what isn't, you know. You know, because I think that's something they don't really teach you in college, is that it's okay to kind of, you keep doing this stuff, but you're not going to get it right every time, but you got to keep doing it, because that's how you learn. You know, you do a good brief, and then you do a bad brief, and then you get it right and you'll get it wrong, and you know, eventually you end up with a sort of you know, an idea of, you know, someone puts a brief in front of you today compared to you 20 years ago, you're off running, but like 20 years ago you're going to the library, you know. So it's a different sort of approach that you can only get through experience, I think.
Just reminded me of another bit of advice for anybody: spell check.
Listen. It's time to tell the listeners now about our long running joke of about 20 years, where I constantly, because your last name is Serjent, which is obviously Serjent. And when I first met you, you always said, you know, people would send me their CVs, and if they spell my name wrong, it was on the letter, straight in the bin. Because
they didn't do research. They didn't
do your research. Do your research.
Whether they spell Stuart wrong or Sergeant wrong or anything.
Yeah. I get it as well. Like measures is a classic for misspelling. So.
Should be 100% spot on.
Yeah. So to carry on my 20-year joke, whenever I send you anything, I always spell your name wrong on everything.
You do. And it makes me smile every time.
I know. And you know that, like, whenever I'm posting you anything, just before I hand it over to the teller at the post, I look at it and I have a little chuckle to myself, because I know the next person who's going to read this is going to do the same. You know, it makes me laugh every time, Stu. And then it comes a time where I think maybe it's gone on now. Maybe it's gone on for long enough. Maybe it's time to stop. And then I think, nah. Never stop. Listen, all you need to know is that, you know, when the fateful day comes that someone needs to design your headstone, who's got 2 thumbs and spell check? This guy. You'll be there, mate. I tell you, if I get that, you know I'm doing that. And vice versa, I expect the same.
Yeah.
Just a Z on the end of measures. I'm good.
So, your last question is
the last question was from Nick, who I interviewed last episode, and he's a photographer.
Yep.
So he asked me this question, but it was for you. And it is, what is it that photographers do that annoys you the most?
Depends what photographer.
Well, I guess for us, it's like if you're on a shoot,
if you're a photographer,
yeah.
Then what annoys me about it most is he's got a better job than I have.
Fair enough.
In all honesty, I did see his question. I've seen his question, and I have time to think about it. I've had fantastic experiences with all the photographers I can remember. I was very rarely have I ever had an issue working with a photographer. I like them. I like working with, whether it's food photography or I've done a bit of fashion and various things. A lot of corporate walking around, like say Faroe Islands or oil rigs, or going around a university or an industrial kind of factory.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've had great experiences with some really nice people. I like photographers. I really don't. They don't annoy me in that sense. I go to this fantastic food photographer, Tony Briscoe, at the moment, and what's great about it is we always order in fantastic lunches.
Yeah.
And they always let me choose, from Deliveroo, and they order this food in. It's brilliant. Normally I'm having some of the most boring lunches.
When you get the invoice from them, are you like, what's this? Sorry.
But no, I really struggled for Nick's question in terms of what annoys me most about photographers, because I've always had a good relationship with them. I hope they like me. I'm very relaxed when it comes to the shoots. I like to art direct, but I like to let them use their own eye, and they're doing what they do best, and I trust them. So I really failed to get an answer on what annoys me most about them, apart from the fact that some of them do fantastic work, which I wish
you're jealous. Yeah, that's a good enough answer.
Foundation course, I would have been a photographer.
Yeah, no, I agree, because
equipment, the best cameras, you look at it, what is that? Where was that? I've never heard of that brand before. Oh, I can't remember the name now. They use this camera. It's from Sweden or something. It's just a fantastic piece of kit.
Yeah.
And there always have been, back to where I used to photograph with 10-8 and stuff, back of the camera. I don't know. I've had really good relationships with many photographers. So,
yeah. They do have a good job. That is something to be annoyed. They do, the ones that that live and breathe it. They do. They travel the world. They get to go to some amazing places. And also they do their own little side projects and things like that, which when you hear about it sounds a bit wanky, but then you're like, oh, I'm so jealous. Like a friend of mine who Graham Hughes, he's a really good photographer, and now film director. He's sort of in the up and coming. Every now and again he'll just be off for a month or two doing some project in America, self-initiated project where he went and shot a whole load of cowboys roping buffalo and all this stuff, and some of the photographs are he's brilliant anyway, but some of the situations that he finds himself in, and these kind of situations that he creates as well, because he does what all good photographers do, which is they get to know everyone before they pick their camera up. They get the stories before they start shooting anything, and he's done some really good work. So yeah, there's definitely a bit of jealousy there, because he's just he gets to travel around the world, and he does like photo shoots for Coca-Cola and all this stuff, and does a job and then has 6 months off.
I've been fortunate to travel to places like Canada, North America, with photographers, spending days and days with these guys, and no problem with them.
No jealousy.
Don't annoy me. So unless he's obviously one of these people who annoys.
No, Nick's he's a great photographer, and but I think he's very conscious of how other people perceive the photographers. He's constantly upping his game, so he's just doing his market research, I think. But I think the thing I said to him was that The only thing that ever, I the same as you, I don't have any problem with anyone that I've ever worked with, but sometimes if photographers don't put themselves out there when you're doing something, if they have an idea about something, they might have answered the brief, but there might be something else. There might be something they could do to push, and I've worked with photographers where we'll be doing something and they'll be trying to achieve something, and then they'll say, how about this? And we do that and it's brilliant, and it ends up feeding into stuff. And sometimes I feel that some photographers I've worked with in the past, they've had the opportunity to do that, but they've held back, and maybe it's through lack of experience or not wanting to upset anyone. But I'd rather it was all out there.
In this digital age, there's no excuse.
No, exactly.
If you see something, just take a picture of it.
Yeah, sure.
I know it used to be back when film was expensive. I kind of get it. You get 5 shots, and you've got to pay for the processing and all of that. These days, it's just digital.
But even on that shoot with Ian that I mentioned before, like there'd be a shot of like the sausages, and it would go off to the courier, and then there'd be like 2 hours waiting for it to come back because you didn't want to change the setup.
It was all congealed at that point.
The sun's moved and melted the chocolate cake, But it has definitely changed now, and but that's a good thing. I think it makes our life a lot easier. So then I guess the last sort of question to that is your question for the next sorry soul that comes on here, to see if you've got anything that you think that you might.
I don't know, the question is kind of like the only other question I've seen obviously is Nick's question to me. What is that photographers do that annoys you most? It's a simple, succinct question.
Yeah.
So I just thought, well, what could I ask? It doesn't sound too wanky. And I thought, well, is there anything out there, if you're a graphic designer, for example, or even if you're a photographer, if you're a designer, is there anything out there that you wish you had designed?
I'll
give you an example. I mean, something, I've probably bored you with as well, but I know I've
sorry, mate, you're breaking up.
Hundreds of times is, one of the logos I most admired is FedEx.
Yeah, that's good. That's always a good one.
It's just that idea.
It's
the Paul Rand, and I've pulled it.
That's up there. That's in the top 5, I think.
Simple, beautiful idea. And those who don't understand what I'm talking about is please have a look at the FedEx logo again. Stir at it long and hard until you see the idea within that logo.
There's a reason that hasn't changed for like 40 years.
Like that, and other people cannot see it. Something like that, I go, I wish I'd designed that.
That's a good one. That is a good one. And that's the reason why that hasn't changed for what, like 50 years or something, or however long it's been. Why would you, imagine, I was going to say, imagine being the next guy that they're like, hey, we want to change the logo, and you're the guy that's got to come up with something better than that. You're like, just down tools. It's not happening, That's a good one.
Funny enough, just at the end, I've just recently designed a logo, and I put it on Instagram the other day, and some smart aleck guy I used to work with says, oh, it looks like the old British Steel logo. Yeah, it does, I suppose. It does.
Yeah. Two people...
That was discontinued in 1999. Give me a break.
And also, it is. The thing is, if you're moving shapes around,
it's a nice logo, and it's got a similarity. Yes, it has. I didn't think of it at the time, and that's the other thing about looking and remembering and turn it upside down and remember. Seeing, it's all been done before. But it's also about now. It's about how that's applied, and also it is possible for two people to have had the same idea. It's not like you saw it and you're ripping it off. It's like, I can remember we did something for Angling Water when we were at Appetite, and we did the identity for that, and and that went out on everything. And of course, you start looking at some of the old logo references from like the 70s and stuff, and time and again. I remember, I can draw it for you now.
Yeah, exactly. It's the circle and the square, isn't it?
Such a simple logo. It was just a droplet, as you said, made up of a circle and a square.
Yeah.
It was just that
symbol. Exactly. Yeah.
And of course, it's just, if you put, a shape like that in, or a globe, or a tree or
Of
whatever.
course it's been done before.
Somebody somewhere has already done it.
Exactly. But what they haven't done is applied it, how that was then applied to that business, and how that applied to their literature, and how that then applied to, and it took that mark and it turned it into something else, you know.
I'm just going to find the old British Steel brand identity guidelines and rip that off totally. So
why not? Oh, what I'd really like now is for the camera to sort of slowly pan round and you've got loads of them stacked up. Your mood board corner is all just British Steel logos. You're like, oh, hang on a minute. Oh.
Look into my ideas bag.
We've all got one of those. So listen, mate, thanks so much for, I think that's it. Thanks so much for coming on to the podcast, mate. I tell you what, I'm really pleased at the moment because I've got 131 subscribers on YouTube. And that's big for me because for ages I had 7. And then
subscriber number 2.
You were, yeah. Well, you know, just after John, the best man at my wedding. Yeah. So for a while it was sort of hanging at about 30, and then it went to like 50, and now it's gone up to like 130. So I think you know, hopefully this podcast will go out and get a few more. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming on and supporting it and all that stuff.
See you.
And there you have it. Thanks for listening. If you would like to take part in any podcasts in the future or have any questions that you would like me to ask, then please hit me up on Twitter. My handle is j@lovedeadline. You can find all of the usual links and contact details in the descriptor below. So like, subscribe, and then feel embarrassed that you did. So all that's left to say, as always, is be good, stay safe, and be kind to one another.